In a world often divided by voices raised in disagreement, every so often, one voice dares to rise, not in conflict, but in clarity. She wasn't from Delhi. She wasn't from Mumbai. She was an American girl, and yet, in her voice, there was reverence. Not for fame, not for force, but for a man who spoke with unmatched precision, dignity, and courage. Dr. S. Jaishankar, India's voice to the world. When she praised him, she didn't just admire a diplomat. She recognized a titan of truth in a time of global confusion. This is not just her story. This is a moment where East met West. Cross-cultural admiration for diplomatic integrity, Jaishankar's global impact through articulate truth East. West unity sparked by mutual respect, a young American's unexpected voice as recognized rising global leadership. In a world increasingly fragmented by political divides and cultural misunderstandings and cultural misunderstandings, as our present voice, the wise. Moments of genuine admiration that cross national boundaries are rare and powerful. When an American girl praised Dr. S. Jaishankar, it wasn't just a compliment from one individual to another. It was a reflection of something deeper. Her words echoed a recognition of integrity that defied borders, a respect born not from obligation, but from observation. She saw in Jaishankar what many across the globe are beginning to see: a leader who speaks not just for a country, but for a principle, dignity through diplomacy. Dr. Jaishankar doesn't conform to the typical image of a statesman, shaped by media narratives or political alliances. He isn't swayed by populist rhetoric or tailored scripts meant to appease international expectations. He speaks with purpose, clarity, and an unwavering commitment to India's sovereign voice. And in that authenticity, people from vastly different cultures, like this young American, find something familiar: truth. The respect she showed wasn't about nationality, it was about character. What makes this moment especially significant is that it came from someone outside the Indian political or cultural sphere. She didn't owe Jaishankar her praise. She had no stake in India's foreign policy, no personal advantage to gain. Her admiration was the result of listening closely to his words, watching how he carried himself on global platforms, and recognizing the rare strength of calm authority. That kind of acknowledgement, when it comes unprompted and free of bias, is often the most honest. Her praise carried symbolic weight. It quietly challenged stereotypes about how Americans view leaders from the global South. It also suggested that substance is beginning to matter more than spin, and that the world is starting to take note of leaders who speak plainly, stand firmly, and lead wisely. This wasn't about politics. It was about truth cutting through noise. In that moment, when she voiced her respect, it was more than just admiration for a man. It was recognition of a deeper shift. A realization that integrity, when consistently lived out on the world stage, can earn respect from even the most unexpected corners. And that perhaps across cultures and continents. Truth still speaks loudest. Dr. S. Jaishankar's influence on the global stage is not defined by spectacle or sensationalism. It is defined by clarity, consistency, and conviction. When he speaks, there is no performance. There is no need to embellish. His words carry weight because they are grounded in truth and truth. When delivered without apology, commands attention across international platforms, be it in press conferences, high-level summits, or quiet interviews. His tone remains calm, his language sharp, and his message unshakable. This unique combination has made him one of the most respected diplomatic voices of our time. The impact of his words extends far beyond India's borders. He doesn't just speak to a domestic audience. He addresses the world with a rare kind of maturity, one that doesn't bend under external pressure. Whether he's correcting misconceptions, defending national interests, or exposing double standards in global narratives, his diplomacy is not just reactive, it's principled. And in a global landscape often overwhelmed by ambiguity and spin, that kind of grounded truth stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. What makes Jaishankar especially impactful is the precision of his language. Every sentence he delivers feels intentional. There's no wasted breath, no drifting into ambiguity. That directness has a disarming effect. It commands respect even from critics because it leaves little room for misinterpretation. He speaks with the confidence of someone who doesn't need validation, but whose presence forces others to reconsider their assumptions. This quality of speech isn't loud. It's deliberate, and because of that, it resonates. As more people across the world begin to pay attention, his influence continues to grow, not through force, but through clarity. When a foreign citizen, like an American girl, recognizes and praises Jaishankar, it's not simply about admiring a foreign minister. It's about seeing someone cut through the noise. Someone who stands firm not for ego, but for principle. That kind of leadership is increasingly rare, and when it emerges, people notice, regardless of their nationality. In today's world, where narratives are shaped by media filters and political agendas, Jaishankar's words remind people that diplomacy can still be honest, that power can still be quiet, and that truth, when spoken with courage, still echoes across the world. The moment an American girl praised Dr. S. Jaishankar, something profound happened beneath the surface. It wasn't just a compliment aimed at a foreign diplomat. It was a subtle, symbolic gesture of respect that bridged two worlds, often portrayed as fundamentally different. In that single act of recognition, the long-standing divide between East and West softened. It was a reminder that admiration doesn't always need to come from shared culture or ideology. Sometimes it's rooted in shared values, values like strength, honesty, and clarity. For decades, narratives have positioned the East and West as opposing forces, often shaped by political agendas, colonial history, or cultural misunderstandings. Yet, what this moment illustrated was that mutual respect can grow outside of these frameworks. A young woman, born and raised in the United States, found inspiration in the voice of an Indian statesman. She wasn't influenced by nationalist leanings or cultural loyalty. She was moved by substance. That kind of cultural admiration isn't orchestrated, it's genuine, and that makes it powerful. When Jaishankar speaks, his words are rooted in history, experience, and vision. He doesn't water down India's position to please the West. nor does he speak in antagonism. He stands in between, firm, respectful, and immovable. That posture doesn't alienate, it invites listening. It demands attention, even from those who may have initially overlooked India's evolving role in global affairs. The fact that someone from a vastly different background could recognize and vocalize that power proves something important. That truth and strength aren't confined by geography. This moment of admiration also signals a generational shift. Young people across the globe are increasingly looking for leaders who don't just talk, but who represent something real. In Jaishankar, many see a man who doesn't posture, but who embodies calm, strategic leadership. His rise is not just India's story. It's a global narrative unfolding in real time. And moments like this, where praise comes from outside expected boundaries, show how deeply interconnected the world has become. It's easy to divide people by borders. It's harder to divide people when they see truth in each other. That American girl didn't just praise Jaishankar. She acknowledged a deeper connection, one that speaks to the possibility of unity through mutual respect. And in today's world, that kind of bridge is priceless. She wasn't a political analyst, a diplomat, or a journalist. She was just a young American girl, standing on the outside of India's political landscape, looking in. Yet her voice carried something that echoed far beyond her own background: genuine admiration. Her praise for Dr. S. Jaishankar wasn't rehearsed, biased, or driven by personal gain. It was real, and that made it powerful. It reminded the world that authenticity doesn't need credentials. Sometimes, truth is best recognized by those who have nothing to gain from speaking it. She could have overlooked him, like many do when they view global affairs through a Western-centric lens. But instead, she listened. She heard his words, watched his calm command of truth, and noticed what others often miss: the way he holds his ground without arrogance, the way he defends his nation without hostility, and the way he exposes global double standards without raising his voice. To her, this wasn't just a foreign minister speaking. This was a leader redefining what quiet strength looks like. What's especially significant is that her admiration came from a place of neutrality. She wasn't raised on Indian politics. She wasn't conditioned to favor one global voice over another. She made an independent judgment, purely based on observation. That kind of recognition matters. Because when someone outside your circle notices your integrity, it's not validation, it's confirmation. It tells the world that character still transcends boundaries. Her words sparked conversation because they weren't expected. It's easy to dismiss praise that comes from within a country as national pride. But when it comes from someone with no direct connection to the culture, it opens people's eyes. It challenges assumptions and invites curiosity. Why would an American girl praise an Indian diplomat? What did she see that others overlooked? What she saw was leadership that doesn't beg for the spotlight. A man who uses diplomacy not to impress, but to represent. And in a world where loud voices often dominate, she recognized the strength of one that speaks simply and clearly. Her praise was more than a compliment. It was a reflection of how leadership, when it's rooted in truth, can inspire even those watching from afar. It proved that sincerity has no borders, and sometimes the most unexpected voices speak the deepest truths. When the American Girl praised Dr. S. Jaishankar, she wasn't just recognizing a man, she was acknowledging a transformation, a shift that has been unfolding quietly but steadily. India's rise as a confident, self-assured global power. Her words served as a mirror to something the world is starting to see, but rarely says aloud. India is no longer waiting for recognition from traditional Western powers. It is claiming its space with dignity, reason, and unshakable presence. Jaishankar, as the face of India's diplomacy, embodies this rise. His voice, calm and precise, is not just defending a nation, it's shaping how that nation is seen by the world. For decades, global leadership has been perceived through the lens of a select few nations. The balance of influence favored those who controlled narratives, set rules, and decided who mattered. But in recent years, that structure has been shifting. Countries like India are no longer on the periphery of major conversations. They are at the table, and they are speaking with clarity. Jaishankar represents that evolution. He doesn't just speak for India's interests, he redefines how those interests are communicated. With logic, with history, and with unapologetic conviction. The American Girl's praise may seem like a small gesture, but in today's interconnected world, perception matters. When someone from outside the cultural and political sphere acknowledges a foreign leader's strength, it signals something deeper. It tells us that leadership today is measured not just by power, but by principle, and that people, especially younger generations, are paying attention to who speaks truthfully, who holds their ground, and who leads with composure rather than aggression. Her voice wasn't amplified by institutions. It wasn't part of a diplomatic exchange or political endorsement. It was simply one individual recognizing something authentic. And in that moment, she wasn't alone. She represented a growing number of people across the world who were beginning to see India not as a supporting character in global affairs, but as a leader in its own right. And so, as her voice echoed with quiet respect, it carried something greater than admiration. It carried the signal of change. A young American, untouched by borders or policy, saw in Dr. S. Jaishankar what millions are only beginning to understand. That true leadership needs no applause, only presence. In his composure, she saw strength. In his words, she heard conviction. And in his unwavering stance, she found the kind of clarity the world so often lacks. It didn't matter that she was from another nation. It didn't matter that their worlds were so different. What mattered was that she recognized truth when she heard it and chose to speak it. That moment became more than a compliment. It became a quiet revolution. Proof that when a leader stands tall with dignity, even those watching from the other side of the world will pause, reflect, and respect. This is not just the story of one girl and one diplomat. It's a reflection of the future that's unfolding. A world where leadership is no longer defined by where you come from, but by what you stand for. And in that future, voices like hers And leaders like him will rise above the noise and remind us all that truth doesn't need volume. It only needs courage.